It's important for you to understand with service learning, because I truly want all of you to use service learning when you're a teacher. It's just, I had wonderful experiences with it. I always had students who loved it, and something else that I found was anytime we had service learning as a class, the class came together. We just gelled together as a community because we were experiencing this really cool opportunity together and working hard together to make it happen. So I do want you to do service learning. However, I want to kind of talk to you about how you can make that happen in a less overwhelming way and how you can kind of set yourself up for success. So we have to keep in mind that Jesus left us the Great Commission. He said, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And so that's my nephew in the background there. And so the way we can think about service learning is, and that's my little niece. Let me see her real quick. Say hi, Mary. We're all at the hospital for my dad here. The way that you can think about your own service learning project is to start with Jerusalem, start local, and that's what I did as a teacher. It was my very first semester of teaching. Actually, I think it was my second semester. It was my first full year. But my students, it kind of came from them because they were so excited by a poetry unit that I had done with them where they were writing their own poetry and we were exploring poetry and they got to choose their own poetry and they had so much fun with it that they said, we need to be able to just share this. You know, we should just have a really fun night where we just hang out and share poetry. And so I said, well, let's have a poetry slam. So we organized it. It happened in my classroom on a night, and we invited the entire community. The newspaper came out, just community members. We raised $50 and or maybe $100 by charging $1 at the door. And the students presented their poetry that they had written. We had a contest where they had the best written poetry and the best that they just shared of someone else's, so the best performance of a poetry reading. And so then we sent that money to the Ryan White Foundation, which is an AIDS foundation. Ryan White was someone my age, and when we were in high school, he died of AIDS that he received from blood transfusions. And so we, at the time, like the 90s, that AIDS was something that they were still exploring a cure for. Now we do have a cure. So again, that service learning happened within my classroom. I didn't have to transport my students anywhere. It did take some organization, but the community came to us. So we supplied a community need for having something fun to do on a Friday night, but we also raised money to send to the Ryan White Foundation, which was a national foundation for AIDS research. So Jerusalem is just starting local, and there are needs in our local community. So really, when you get your first teaching job, spend your weekends, hanging out in your community and learning what those needs are. Volunteer yourself for opportunities in the community, and then that will help you really open your eyes to what you can do with your students and how they can also get involved in volunteerism in your community. Judea is then also our region, and so once you feel comfortable looking at the very local neighborhood of your school, you can look at the region the school is in and what they can do for that. Perhaps you can even collaborate with a friend who works at a school far away. Maybe if you, for example, teach in inner city Pittsburgh and your friend teaches in Mars or Slippery Rock or somewhere, you could have your students collaborate together on a joint service learning project. Then they're getting to know students from another background and they're working toward a goal together. Samaria are our outcasts. So think for a moment who the outcasts are of our world in America. I would argue that prisoners are our outcasts. The homeless might be seen as outcasts. Prostitutes are outcasts. And perhaps even in some regards, people view those with severe disabilities as outcasts. So just think about that and how you can use service learning to get your students to serve those who have been outcasts and to learn what life is like for them so that they can develop empathy. And then the Ends of the Earth International. And so, again, like you can start with Jerusalem, maybe jump out to Judea, but you can do a service learning project that is international. And you can do this even if it's where your students stay in the school and you collaborate with a foundation or an organization that is overseas, perhaps so you can Skype in together so that they can see what they're serving or who they're serving. But also you can actually take students abroad. My husband and I did that our first year of marriage, actually. We took several 10th graders to Israel. I'm sorry, no. The year before, I went with the service learning trip to Israel, but I was not the leader of that trip. When my husband and I took students, we took them to Greece. And so while we were there, now service learning wasn't the focus of the trip. The focus was for them to see Greece, and we were connecting it to humanities. I taught a lot of classical literature, and they also learned about ancient Greek society in their history class. And so, but we did, it was important to us to have service learning as part of the trip. So we stopped at a place that housed missionaries that spent extended time in Greece. And they had families that would stay there. And so we redid their basketball courts and playgrounds, painting them and things like that, and getting spruced up for the families. And then we also had the opportunity to talk to one of the missionaries there and the work that he did on his research on Paul. So you can do international work. I would encourage you perhaps to have another colleague to share that project with. But it's wonderful experience for your students who can go, and then also it'll be a great experience for you as well, and will actually enrich your own teaching because of the experience that you have about everything that you learn on that trip. Lastly, I want to talk about the difference between transformative and charitable service learning. And I always, going to Indiana University, learned that transformative service is the way to be. But my student actually taught me that there is a place for charitable as well. So charitable service is one where you just go and give. Transformative is where you through the service you're trying to change society. So think of the word transform. But my student made the point that charitable has a place because until you can transform society, you need to supply those immediate needs that the people may need. So it's okay to have a service learning project that is charitable, but hopefully you will also push your students to see that we need to transform that part of society that's creating the need to begin with. And so what can we do in the long term to really affect change permanently?